It is not the critic that counts, not the one who points out how the strong man stumbles or the doer of deeds does not perform them properly. The credit belongs to those who are actually in the arena, whose faces are marred with blood and sweat and dirt. And when they strive gallantly. And if they fail while daring greatly. So their place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat. Welcome to the Combat Vet Transition Journey podcast. Pat Frager here. Every combat vet suffers from physical and emotional challenges. I find that transition is a lifelong journey. As they say, it's a marathon, not a sprint. One of my favorite quotes from Teddy Roosevelt, Rough Rider, President, and Combat Vet is personified by today's guest, Brian Meyer. My good friend personifies that quote. How you doing, brother?
Excellent. Glad to be here.
Thanks for being here, bro.
It's my pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Tell us, Brian, you've transitioned quite well if you want to get into what occurred on the battlefield.
I call this photo "Look Ma No Hands." Basically thought I didn't have any hands. But I was a bomb technician. I was serving in Afghanistan. In March 14th, 2011, I was disarming the bomb that got me here in this photo.
How many bombs had you disarmed up until that point, Brian?
I was a member of a 3-man team, and between the guys that cycled through that team, we did right around 80 bombs, probably.
Okay. And how long, how many tours of duty had you done at that time?
This was my third tour, my first tour to Afghanistan, my third combat tour, and this is 6 months into that tour.
Okay. And what was your rank at that time, Brian?
Staff Sergeant, E6.
Okay. And then you got promoted to E7 subsequently, did you?
I was selected, so I was just waiting for my number to come up to be able to get promoted.
Tell us what happened.
Oh, well, just trying to mitigate, basically creating collateral damage, and trying to, establish these relationships with the local Afghanis and things like that. We always try to, not make holes in the roads or try not to blow down walls. So I was removing this bomb from the ground, and it basically blew up in my right hand.
People have seen the Hurt Locker.
Yeah.
And I remember the guy walking around with what looked like a spacesuit on.
Yeah.
And I recall a conversation you and I had in which you said we didn't wear that shit. It was too hot. So tell me, what did you wear? It doesn't look like you're wearing much here.
Basically what you see. What got blown off is basically the safety glasses. So I had a nice pair of Oakleys that are no longer there in the photo, but everything else is pretty much as you see it. So, the suit is great. It's a great tool, but we've got lots of different tools, and that tool wasn't the right tool for the job here in Afghanistan. So I was definitely more of a stateside pipe bomb type stuff, whereas I'd ended up the exact same injuries that I currently have, even if I had been wearing that suit.
So you're transitioning, Brian. When did you come to the realization that you had survived, you were there, and now you're going to go on with your life?
I wouldn't necessarily say I'm a model for this is what you should do. I've done a lot of wandering, definitely a lot of, just kind of trying to figure stuff out on my own.
What have your challenges been, Brian? Mentally and physically? As far as I'm concerned, you've done quite well physically, but just go through it with us if you would.
Yeah. I'd say you're given this rare opportunity to be retired at a very young age, and you think maybe at a young person's perspective, it's like retirement's about, having time to yourself and do whatever you want, whenever you want and whatnot. And I tried that for a little while, and I found out it really wasn't helping me out at all. It wasn't making me happy, even though I don't know.
Were you bored? Were you depressed?
Definitely bored.
Okay.
And the depression, but I think we're designed to struggle, and guys stop struggling, or they start participating in a struggle. And then basically what wasn't a struggle then becomes the struggle, So it's like, I used to be able to do all this stuff, and now I can't do any of it. And now I feel like, everything's frustrating and whatever. But, you dig yourself out of those situations and you sort of figure it out. For me, hunting was a big one.
Okay.
I really enjoy hunting. Hunting is everything I love about the military, with nothing I don't like.
Okay.
I say that a lot.
Tell us about the hunting, Brian.
Sure.
Where have you hunted and what have you used?
I've hunted in South Africa, British Columbia, all over the United States, and Argentina.
Are we speaking of a big game hunting?
Argentina was dove. South Africa was all big game. It was the Cape buffalo, kudu, red hartebeest, impala, blessbuck, and a springbuck.
Now, did you have your trips subsidized by any organizations?
Right.
How
All
did that work?
all of my hunting has been on the kindness of strangers that
Okay.
either support veterans that just in any they just love veterans, and they're like, hey, I want to do this just out of my own pocket, to organizations that are 501c3s that, they fundraise specifically to take veterans out hunting.
Now, do you go from country or place to place depending on the season? I know in Argentina they have certain seasons for dove hunting. I know of other people who go down there and just shoot dove during the season. Do you have?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
there is no dove hunting season in Argentina.
There
It's
is
year round.
Year round. So
Year
you can
round,
kill
yeah.
dove anytime you want.
Anytime you want.
Okay.
They breed 4 times a year.
Okay.
They can blot out the sun.
Okay.
I mean, they will blot out the sun.
What sort of weapon do you use for dove hunting?
Shotgun. I think it was a 20 gauge. If you shot a 12 gauge all day, you just dislocate your shoulder, because,
Okay.
I mean, some guys would try to shoot 1,000 dove a day.
What do they do with the doves when they're? I'm sure you don't eat 1,000 doves a day, do you?
Do not eat 1,000 doves a day. What you're really doing is, so what you're going out to is you're paying to go out into these farmers' fields, and the farmers are losing their crops basically to the dove, or they lose something like 30% of their crop annually. So what you're doing is you're subsidizing that, because you're paying to go out on their farm and basically help them out a little bit. We do take up a lot of the dove. You eat a lot of dove down there. It is delicious. I highly recommend it. But the majority, and then what happens when you leave the field and there's just all these dove in the field, all sorts of, different hawks, different foxes, all sorts of stuff come out of the woodwork and just, they clean up.
They devour it,
They
like
devour it.
roadkill, huh?
Yeah. South Africa was absolutely amazing. And that was another hunt that kind of came out of nowhere. A guy I ran into at a show. I'm sorry, this Melanie Peterson. I ran into Melanie Peterson, not a guy, girl. She's like, hey, you want to go to Africa? And I was like, yeah, sure. We're just drinking at the bar, and it's like, I'd never met this person before ever. And she's like, well, I got it. And she's like, if you want to go, we can go. And I was like, all right, well, sign me up. And ended up spending 3 weeks with her throughout, with her hunting party throughout 3 different spots in South Africa. The Karoo, I forget the other places' names, unfortunately, but it was great. It was a great time.
What have you done since then?
Since then I've been on, I think, I've done a mountain lion hunt up in British Columbia, caribou hunt up in northern British Columbia, which is really amazing. A 10-day one where my prosthetic legs only got a 5-day charge in it, so it's a 10-day hunt, and it ran out basically on day 3.
When you say your prosthetic leg, are you speaking of the knee in your prosthetic
The knee
leg?
and the prosthetic leg, correct.
Okay, and your charge lasts for about what'd you say?
5 days if you're walking on flat ground.
How often do you have to have that replaced?
I get them replaced annually.
Annually, that's not bad.
I'm pretty rough on them. I mean, my lifestyle is pretty rough on them.
Who subsidized your trip to British Columbia?
That's a organization's Wounded Warrior Outdoors. They're a great organization, and they take guys all over the United States and British Columbia and Alaska.
That's a name we hear often, Wounded Warriors. Yeah, the Wounded Warriors, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that it started with the Wounded Warriors battalions. You have Wounded Warriors Battalion West, I believe you were in that. And it's Wounded Warriors Battalion East in Camp Lejeune. Then they had these other offshoots of Wounded Warriors. But how did the Wounded Warriors Battalion help you transition? I assume you were there while you were still in the Marine Corps, correct?
Yes.
Okay. How long were you there, and how did you transition from the Wounded Warriors Battalion to, I assume, was TDRL and then retirement?
Well, I am not so much a fan of the big Marine Corps in general, right?
Okay.
We have two missions in the Marine Corps. The first is mission accomplishment, and the second is troop welfare. Okay, I've never seen them get to the second one, you know. So, and then even at the Wounded Warrior Battalion, where it seemed like troop welfare was the mission, I rarely saw it accomplished. I only saw the government machine doing its government thing, making it, turning its paper, you know, and processing these guys into categories, you know. I was fortunate that I was more senior in my career, and I kind of knew the questions to ask. Unfortunately, a lot of other guys don't know the right questions to ask, and then a lot of times too, people are not telling you the right answers to those questions, even if you are asking the right, you know. You can't get much information. Like when I first got there, you know, you kind of want to know what's going to happen, what's this, what's that, and it's like, well, nobody wants to talk about it, because if you go down a different route, because there's all these different sort of like bureaucratic routes you run when you're either going to get medically retired or disabled or you know, stay on limited duty or all this stuff, right? So nobody wants to, you know, say, oh, this is how it's going to be, because it may change, and then you look back and you said, oh, it was this way, and you said it was going to be this way, and it went that way, and it's like,
Well, I
so it
think
doesn't inspire much confidence.
well, I think it's fair to say that you were in an elite unit. You're still an elite person. And there are other people in that elite unit who I have met through prosthetics. One of which was another one of my favorite people, David Lyons. David Lyons, I believe, was a staff sergeant in the Marine Corps. I found him to be pretty inspiring, and I know you guys stuck together. And you guys, that whole group. There was another guy who was in the Navy. I think his name was Andrew. He was a trip amp. And you guys, I remember at one point in time, I think you were going turkey hunting together or something. What can you tell us about the closeness of that elite group, even today? Could you expand on that a little bit?
One of the things you're talking about, the transition, is you kind of go through this period of figuring it all out, right? So Dave Lyon and Andrew are very industrious guys. Like, they're just, you know, they like work, you know, they take a plate and they'll just eat it, you know, it's like, go, what's next? What's the next? How can I make this better? There's real hungry guys, you know. Unfortunately, Dave died on the operating table. And then Andrew's, I think he's gone off and got another career, but
David, I believe what they said, it was complications from military injuries. I think it started out as a stroke at Balboa. I don't know too many of the facts about it, but I know he seemed to be. He wasn't even 40 years old at the time, but he was inspirational. And I know you guys are close, so if it makes you uncomfortable, obviously don't go into it. But I just wanted to get into the close knit unit you guys had. Your bomb techs, and notwithstanding what branch of service you're in, you and David are Marines and Andrew's Navy. But there are other guys in the Army too, and I'm
well, in
sure.
the bomb community, we all go to the same school. So we really, a lot of us, you know, sort of shed our service loyalties for a bomb tech loyalty, because we all go to the same school. That's
Like a
another thing
family.
the Marine Corps doesn't like too much about when I talk about this is, you know, I considered myself a bomb tech first instead of a Marine first, you know, and they were like,
Well, you had to work to get there. You worked hard and you sacrificed hard. Let's get into your. I know we've been involved in a few things together. I've worked with you on some different businesses you're involved in, and could you tell us? And I'll start with cannabis, the efficacy of cannabis, because I don't think you're big on medication. You're not big on alcohol, but you have used cannabis. Could you tell us, whatever you're comfortable with, cannabis, how it works, the difference between CBD and THC and so forth, from what you understand?
sure, which is nothing. I understand nothing. I know I've experimented with cannabis a lot. I like it a lot. I'm a professional, nothing. I really enjoy growing it. I really I'm going to be more involved in the industry, either in a grower capacity or, you know, a bud tender capacity. And if I can get my legs under me, so to speak, I'd love to have my own business with with some other veterans we'll probably talk about later on, maybe in other episodes and things like that. But that stuff's just all sort of budding, so to speak, no pun intended, but something I've always really been interested in.
Well, let's talk about your empirical experience
Sure.
with cannabis. Can you tell us how you use it? Do you use it to relax? Does it relax you? Do you use it to get a quote unquote buzz for a little more energy? How do you use it?
People could probably look at me and say, oh man, he's medicating. Oh, he's pain. But in reality, in my opinion, it's just all recreational to me.
Does it help you physically as well as emotionally when you do that?
Well, because it does limit your exposure to pain, I can smoke it when I'm hurting myself and not realize I'm hurting myself with my prosthetic leg. Okay. So I can numb up to the point where it's almost like an overuse injury. But as far as emotionally or anything like that, I don't know. It makes there's a lot of my friends like it as well. So it's social as well. It's not like I'm holed up somewhere, I'll do this.
But you are still aspiring to be your own boss, to start your own business. And I think Henry David Thoreau said, sustaining oneself in life should be a pleasure, not a hardship. And from meeting with yourself and a couple of other amputee combat vets, you guys seem to enjoy the cannabis business. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, for sure. I think part of what we enjoy too is the fact that it's quasi-legal, right?
Yeah.
It's a little bit, on the fringe,
Well, I think it's legal in California and recreationally, and you can have so much personal in your use. We know that, and it's expanding. I understand. As a matter of fact, there's someone who's going to be on our podcast in a few. His name is Brian Buckley, and Brian has got I have to get you guys together because he has an organization. He calls it Hellman Valley Growers, and he is looking to get this approved or legalized on a federal level. So, Brian, what advice do you have to other combat vets that are out there? People who are wallowing in, for want of a better term, in a state of emotional disarray, in quiet desperation. What advice do you have as, I would say, someone who personifies having come from the abyss all the way through to where you're actually comfortable with your life?
Don't isolate, definitely get out, even if you don't want to be around people, you can still get outside. Find your purpose, I haven't gone through this book completely yet. I keep putting it off, but it's called What Color's Your Parachute? And there's all sorts of different really helpful transition advice. If the Marine Corps modeled this transition program from that book, that would be an amazing program.
Have you met other combat vets who you have aspired to, who have been motivational for you to help you through whatever crises you've undergone from being hit in combat to where you are right now?
I love that I have, that network that I can reach out to. And I've also got that, it's more than a network, it's a brotherhood with, a select few of those guys. I guess most of those guys are my mentors, in a lot of ways.
And vice versa.
Yeah, they say so. But.
Well, I think it's fair to say that you personify a quote I like from Henley. You are the captain of your fate, and you are the master of your soul. So I will thank you for being here. Folks, thanks for stopping by. If you enjoyed this, which I hope you did, give us a thumbs up, give us a like, and subscribe for future episodes. And if you haven't looked at it yet, take a look at last week's episode where we had Joe Sturdivant at the Veterans Museum here in Vista. It was interesting. I think you'll enjoy that also. And we're looking forward to our next interview. And remember, you are the captains of your fate and the masters of your soul.